Hello and welcome to the Vegan Life magazine podcast. It's the podcast that's all about plant-based food and how to eat it. And we are continuing our world tour. And it's sort of, I got to tell you, technically, it's no mean feat sometimes putting this podcast together. Today is one of those days. Would have been quicker and easier with some yogurt pots and some string, but only vegan yogurt, obviously. Let's meet our chefs as we take on Indian cuisine. Samah Dada, cookbook author and host of Cooking on Today. Is that Today? Like, what kind of Today is that, Samah?
Yes, it's the Today show on NBC.
Oh my God!
Every Today.
That's like amazing.
Blimey, that's very impressive.
Wow.
I got to ask. I got to ask you right now. Have you met Rachel Maddow?
I have. Yes.
Shut up!
She probably won't remember me, but I was an NBC page before I worked at the Today Show, and I was like in the uniform. I was like giving the NBC studio tour, and so like I would see her all the time. I don't think I left an impression, but yes, is the short answer to your question.
You have been touched by God. That's amazing. Anjula Devi is a chef and author and is an Indian food consultant for Manchester United, which sounds very glamorous. This is a very glamorous podcast.
Do you know what? It's really good fun. It's really good fun. It's very pressurized, as I'm sure Samah and Joe will know. But I've learned so much. It's incredible the amount of experience I've come away with, and of course I'm back there this season, so it's good fun.
Wow.
Is that I mean, when you say you've learned so much, like about tackling or the offside rule?
No, language.
Oh crikey. Well, this is a family show.
No. I mean, the language can get quite blue, obviously, but and that was a bit of a shock when I first arrived there. But no, just upscaling. You know, we're cooking every dish we're making. We're cooking for thousands of people. But when I arrived there, I knew how to cook. You know. Butter chicken for 500 people, but I certainly didn't know how to cook butter chicken for 2,500 people. So the first few attempts, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And Joe, I was thinking, oh my God, why is this not tasting great? You know. But obviously we got there in the end, and certainly the first two matches I walked away thinking I am just not happy with this dish. But I mean, everybody else was. I wasn't, because I knew it could taste so much better.
Wow!
But we taught British, classically trained chefs to cook really good Indian food, and no one sauce fits all. Every single dish that is made at Man United has its own sauce, its own spices, and we're very much really happy that we're able to feed the fans really good Indian food. And although we are so happy with what chicken tikka has done for the UK in terms of Indian food, we rarely put chicken tikka on the menu.
Interesting.
Where it's all dal, black lentils, okra, aubergines.
Yeah.
So we're really pleased.
Awesome. And finally, Chef Jomon Kuriakose is chef de cuisine at the LaLIT London and appeared on Celebrity Masterchef UK. Hello to you. And Joe, where are you?
Basically, if I'm living in Essex, all the way from Kerala. That's the south part of India.
Oh, wow.
Where veganism and vegan food is quite famous out there. That is the place I belongs to. And here I'm I'm trying to implement my cuisine or my home cuisine to more fine dining aspects into the gourmet world of London.
I was going to kind of ask what to each of you are the kind of key flavors, the spices or ingredients that really epitomize Indian food. But then I thought, is that an answerable question when there are so many Indian regions? Yeah,
actually, people has got a wrong conception, saying that if anyone has heard about spice, the first thing it hit there in my mind is like, okay, it's chili, or it's hot, or it's a pepper. So when I talk about Indian food, I mean, talk about Indian spices, I mean, for a simple example, I'm using 14 different spices to make my Garam Masala.
Wow.
That is including dry rose petals.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people don't use that, but it's give you flavors and aromas to the garam masala.
Yeah.
And even talk about each and every spices. It has got its own medicinal values. Everything is unique from others. In Texas, many of them. Only the similarity for the spices. Many of them looks exactly the color looks exactly similar, but each and everything in flavors, in textures, the medicinal values. Each and everything is different from others, and it's all unique.
Yeah.
There are some spices they don't go well with. There are some spices, for example, it's like a cardamom and maize. It's like a marriage made in heaven. No one can divorce them separate.
Yeah.
Those are the spices.
Yeah. And
there are some spices.
Yeah. And Anjula, talking about garam masala, is that? Talk a little bit about that, and then you answer the question about what to you epitomizes Indian
Joe's
food.
absolutely right. The garam masala, essentially has, most of us will use similar spices. But growing up, my father and I came up with lots of different ways to make great garam masala. For example, when we make a biryani masala, Joe, we tend to use sometimes, my father and I discovered kalpasi years and years ago, and only just recently has it surfaced. People have started using it, and kalpasi is it's like I don't know, Joe, whether Joe might be able to explain it.
It's like an algae.
Yeah.
It's like an algae, and it's called stone flour.
Yeah. And It's absolutely amazing. It delivers this smoky mushroom flavor that you cannot get from any other spice. And then at the back of your, the undertones are kind of a cinnamony taste. But I don't make a biryani without it now. I just think it's just you have to be careful. It works well within a masala. You can't really use it on its own, I don't think. But so every masala is different for, if you went to 20 different Indian households, knocked on their door and asked to see their masala dabba, which is a steel box, and compartments within that steel box of usually 7, every one of them will have a different combination, because they all have, got different palates, different taste. But most of the spices we use, they all really kind of come together and work together. It's just a case of understanding how and when those spices enter your pan, because for us, it's, if we're using mustard seeds, they're always the first thing that go into a pan because they're quite pungent. And the other thing that people don't understand with mustard seeds, if you throw them in whole, you're not really going to get any heat from them. They really have to be crushed before you can get the maximum flavor from mustard seeds. But I like to actually calm them down a little bit before I sit anything else on top of them, because otherwise they can dominate your dish. So it's actually having the understanding and knowledge of spices. That's what we give away to people when we're teaching them. It's all about, fundamentally, about the spices. Once you understand the spices, you literally can do anything, and you can make it your own. There are no curry police. They're not going to come knocking on your door and say, hey, Anjula said to put black cardamom in this and you haven't done it. It really isn't. And that's the thing that I personally like to take the myth away, that you have to follow the recipe. We're not baking a cake or biscuits where you have to be exact with flour and everything else and butter. With Indian spices, there's a treasure trove of spices that blend well together, that and you can't really go wrong unless you overuse things. Turmeric is one of them. Turmeric, if you overuse turmeric, literally you're just going to get this really overwhelming bitter flavor, and it kind of can ruin the dish.
Okay. Well, in terms of garam masala, we've heard about 2 boxes, Joe, with his 14 spice blends. Samah, what about you? Tell us about yours.
You both mentioned before, I think it is really about learning how to use spices and not being scared off by them. I think the biggest hindrance to people when they're looking at Indian cooking or wanting to cook Indian food at home is being super intimidated by all of the spices. And that's one thing that really, it's hard. And that's why it's really exciting to be able to demystify that process and know okay, well, if I just experiment, not just with the ground spices, not just with the whole spices, because you've got those, right? You've got like the ground turmeric, the ground cumin, cayenne, but you've also got the cumin seeds, the mustard seeds, like Anjula was saying. So learning to experiment and not being afraid of doing the wrong thing is really important. I know that my mom always asks me, is this like the right Indian way to do it? Is this the right way? And I kind of always talk about how it's your way and it's my way, and it doesn't have to be like everyone else's if you make it your own. And if you don't like burn your spices,
definitely.
like Anjula was saying, that's the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And also, we've recently, we use mango powder quite a lot, and it delivers this sour sweetness, tart flavor. But I recently picked up hibiscus, and it delivers exactly the same thing, but probably a bit nicer, because it's not as sharp. You haven't got that kind of with the mango powder. You do that mango powder is in the dish, whereas with hibiscus, it's giving you this really well-rounded flavor. Try it, Samah. You won't be disappointed.
I'm gonna have to try that because I've never used hibiscus. Wow, thank God I'm here.
I even tried sorrel. Instead of kokum for my fish curries. So I don't mind to adapt new ingredients what is available to the market. I try to replace them with my own cuisine, and I make dish. And here I'm just making use of all the local ingredients which is available into the local market.
Amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's come on to some of the questions from listeners. Thanks very much for them. If you've got a question about any kind of vegan food, you can just email podcast@veganlifemag.com, and we will forward it to the best chef to answer it. Pat says, have you got any suggestions for the best Saag Aloo? It's just off the scale awesome stuff, and I need to make it properly. Samah, let's start with you.
So what I actually like to do with Saag Aloo, which for people who don't know is like a spinach and potato dish. It's not really like a wet curry with a gravy. It's more dry. And if you guys have different preparations of making it, that's usually how I make it. What I like to do is actually use sweet potatoes, which is not normal per se, but I love the way that sweet potatoes add this nice like kind of golden sweetness when you cook them. I usually will boil them first before adding it in with my spinach. And of course I start by like sizzling my cumin seeds and my oil and adding my garlic and my chilies and all of that. But that's like my little tip with Saag Aloo. I'm sure you both, Anjula and Joe, can add, but that's like my little twist that I like to do.
Nice, very nice. It's a bit healthier as well.
It's a little healthier, yeah. And I mean, I'm obsessed with carrot, sweet potato. I'm like a beta carotene freak. I don't know what it is, but my hands are like orange. It's crazy. But yeah, that's probably due to that.
Anjula, have you done Saag Aloo for 2,500? Have you done 2,500 portions of it? And because Pat's in the market for all of them.
We have. And do you know, Pat, the best thing for us, Saag Aloo is all about the fresh ingredients. Buy everything fresh. So we only actually use 3 spices in Saag Aloo, would you believe? We never count the chili flakes or the turmeric because that's a given in Indian food. So the main spices we use in Saag Aloo is a tiny bit of ajwain, sometimes known as garam seeds, cumin seeds and mustard seeds, and then we allow the fresh ingredients to do all the talking. So you want fresh spring onions, fresh onions, brown onions, you want garlic, ginger is very, very important in Saag Aloo as far as I'm concerned, but it's all about pulling those fresh flavors together and then adding a little bit of lemon juice towards the end. That's how we make Saag Aloo.
What do you do? So do you saute the potato with the spices and then add the spinach? What do you?
We actually love to cube the potatoes, drizzle them with a little bit of oil and a little bit of cumin and put them in the oven, and then just get them just almost done, and then they're thrown into the saag at the very, very last minute. So they just kind of all smush up and they just come together with the saag, and I think that for me that's the best way to, because you know what you don't want to do with Saag Aloo is have an uncooked potato. That's like disastrous. It really would ruin the entire dish.
I hate an undercooked potato. It feels like one of the worst crimes.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to say it's 4 spices. Kasuri methi, which is fenugreek leaves, goes in at the very end.
Okay. And, we'll let all the other flavours that you put in there, like garlic and ginger, we'll just let that slide. Yeah. And the turmeric. It's just 3, apart from turmeric and garlic.
No, do you know what? When you do it, you kind of like just do. You will know, won't you? When you're doing it at home yourself, it's done automatically. And then when you talk about it, it's a different thing. You think, oh my God, I forgot the most important. And in fact, the fenugreek leaves, Joe will tell you, is probably the most important spice in the Saag Aloo.
They're so
good. Really? Joe, is that true? Are you all about the fenugreek leaves?
Actually, to be very honest, Anjula, I may sprinkle some fenugreek leaves on top, but when it thinks about aloo palak, I have some similar way of making it, but I have my own unique techniques to follow. I always try to adapt some European cooking techniques or French cooking techniques to my food within Indian food itself, where I fondant potatoes. I cut them in small cubes and I toast them in. I add butter on a pan. I add some cumin. So I'll wait for the cumin to splutter and add those. Put small cut cubed potatoes to the butter, toast them nicely, and cover and cook like sadly the Europeans or the French cuisine do the fontaine potatoes. So what happens is, it sucks the flavors of cumin and butter in. It itself is so tasty, and I try to add some salted butter. So I don't add another salt into it. So it's soaky with the butter and the cumin. It's infused in such a way. You can have it nicely. Don't even add anything. You can pick your potatoes and have it. And while you're making your spinach gravy, I always go for a gravy, not a stir fry ones. I believe with the spinach, fresh spinach, boil water, simmer them. Pick all the spinach leaves into it, pick them up, cold water. Under ice, cold water, run them very nicely and get it out and make a paste. And again, there are a couple of things to notice. While you're boiling it, you shouldn't boil for a long time. While grinding, you shouldn't grind for a long time. It loses its color. You won't get that vibrant look of that spinach. Yeah. And again, once the spinach has been done, the second thing, I always start with the ghee. Clarified butter. I'm sorry, it's vegan. I know, but
I know. I was about to say, so how do you veganize ghee? That's the
okay. I saw that as well, but I'll come to that point too. Okay. So I always start with the ghee. Again, on a ghee, some chili flakes, some mustards, otherwise a dry red chili, and garlic, loads of garlic, more garlic and less ginger.
For me, it's ginger. For me, Joe, it's ginger and a bulk.
What happened? Why I add more garlic? Only because aloo, the potato has got a bloating effect where you have lots. So when you have a garlic, it won't make you bloat.
Oh, really?
A touch of asafoetida might.
Exactly. So when it's lentils or when it's potatoes, it's always have lots of garlic in it, so it won't give you a bloating feel when you're having it. So once that is done, half a teaspoons of chickpea flour, and then the spinach puree. So what happens is spinach puree doesn't leave its water, so it comes a very thick creamy consistency, and then you'll add your potatoes into it and cover and cook for a very few minutes. Don't boil it too much. I don't want to lose its color. And finish with a dash of butter again on top, and some double cream.
See, this is such a cop out. This is such a non-vegan cop out. It's like, what I do is I drown everything in butter, and it tastes incredible. I don't know how it happens. Such a cheat. Listen,
I'll tell you, for the
my
vegan
ass
option,
gets very fatigued when I eat too many potatoes. But what are we going to do if we're not having the butter fun? What do we do?
Rapeseed oil is a really great alternative. I love to use rapeseed oil.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can go for coconut oil, extra virgin coconut oil.
Oh, no, that's a good
I use coconut oil.
Yeah. Now, would that be?
I'm hardcore.
Would that be?
No way! Not in Saag Aloo. You can't use coconut oil in Saag Aloo.
Anjula is dying. She's like, absolutely get me off the air.
That is an No, Joe. Do not recommend coconut oil. So here you go, Jacob. What you need is rapeseed oil.
This has never happened on this podcast before, ever.
She is exiting the chat. She is like, I'm done with you people.
You monsters!
But exactly, otherwise, if you still see, I am from South region of India, so coconut is like a life to us. We use all the forms of coconuts, whether it's chutney, whether it's curry, whether it's in the oil, whether it's in tempering. Everywhere there will be coconut, and we love even the coconut oil. So instead of coconut oil, if you're not that fond of coconut oil, add a dash of mustard oil. That's give you a good crack.
Okay, I think we've lost Anjula. I think she's so furious she broke her own internet.
I like really good quality olive oil too. That's what I use in a lot of different things instead of butter, just because. But you need to make sure that it's a good olive oil, extra virgin. But a lot of the extra virgin olive oil requirements are like they can get under that certain point of acidity, but dilute it with other oils, so it's not actually in its purest form. So if you can get your hands on a good single origin extra virgin olive oil, I use that as well.
That's really interesting.
I'm afraid to say anything about coconut oil now in front of Anjula.
I know.
I'm like afraid to say the word.
When you say coconut, we're going to have to exploit the fact that technically Anjula's having trouble connecting, which means we can have this conversation sneakily without her.
Oh no.
Would you use the?
Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry about that.
We weren't talking about.
Even the computers decided to.
You just got moderated. I wasn't. I definitely wasn't about to ask. Like, because there's like coconut oil that sort of has a completely neutral taste, and then there's like coconut oil that has a coconut oil taste.
Yeah.
Samah, pretend Anjula's just left the room for a second. What one would you use?
I'm like so scared right now. I'm like freaking out.
I know, it's terrifying. And she knows footballers.
I just use like regular. So I would say actually, like I know I just offended Anjula by saying that I like coconut oil, but with my Indian food, I actually use a really good quality single origin extra virgin olive oil. So to make things vegan, that's my preference. I don't really use coconut oil in my Indian curries. Yeah. I use coconut oil a lot to bake actually, so that's like my shtick. But and I'm not just saying this because I want Anjula to like me. I'm just saying like extra virgin olive oil. Like make sure you're getting a good quality, because it's usually if they can literally call anything extra virgin olive oil these days, because it just has to be below a certain level of acidity, so they can cut it with all this other random stuff.
Oh, right.
So I would recommend a good quality olive oil.
I would recommend rapeseed oil. Is the go-to. My mom uses that in terms of
we got
coconut oil from this side.
Oh, Joe, don't stir it up again. Oh, Joe, what are you doing?
Our audio was sounding good for like 5 minutes. Come on, man.
Jacob, you said something really valid, that there is coconut oil out there that doesn't deliver that really coconut-y taste. So it's called a mild. I don't know. They name it.
It's refined. I think they call it.
It's like refined.
That's the one to go for if you did want to use.
If you want to be that guy. Okay, well that's the first question answered, and and we've had an international incident. Okay, Frankie says, we're never going to get through all of these. What the hell are we going to do? Please keep your answers short. Joe, go and deal with your child, because it's okay. This is a very inclusive podcast, and if you need to take a moment and deal with your child,
they're playing downstairs.
Oh my God. It sounds like they're playing with a ceremonial sword. Anyway, Frankie says, most naan recipes seem not to be vegan. Do you have any tips to successfully veganize? Joe will be like, cover them in butter. Go on.
Actually, to be very honest, naan has got its own authentic recipe. It has to have a yogurt, egg, and milk. So if you ask me, I don't use egg in my recipes for the naan. For the LaLIT, even we don't use egg, but we definitely use milk and yogurt for a recipe. If you take those milk and yogurt from the recipe, you can't call it's a naan.
Oh wow!
But still, you can make it with the water if you're that prone to. You can add some soya milk instead of normal milk to get naan bread out. But that is
but just don't call it naan.
Few options.
You can call it grandma,
exactly,
granny.
But if it's,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically you're talking to a typical North Indian chef. I mean, it has to have that milk and yogurt inside for the naan recipe. Yes.
Wow.
But for vegans, what we do only give them rotis. We don't give them naan. So whenever any vegans comes to the hotel, so we serve them rotis, tandoori rotis. It's like all wheat rotis.
Yeah.
But you can substitute soya milk with the normal milk.
Yeah, but I feel like we'd only attract your contempt.
I was about to say coconut yogurt, and then I saw.
Don't stop! Here we go. That's a very triggering word. Hang on, Anjula. I'm gonna make Samah be like a buffer between the two of you. Samah,
I'm nervous to talk now. I'm scared. I was actually going to say a full-fat coconut yogurt or a full-fat cashew yogurt and vegan butter.
Yeah,
that's what I would do for that. I don't use. Yeah, I don't use any dairy in any of my cooking actually, and I've never made naan. I've actually been trying to test like a gluten-free naan recipe, which I know offends probably like most Indians everywhere.
I have a brilliant one. I will send it to you.
Please do, because I've tested it with coconut flour.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
I can give you something tip. I mean, you can use a gluten-free flour and use santan gum. That's giving you elasticity for your bread.
Okay.
Yeah, I've tested it with like a coconut flour. But anyway, in regards to just like veganizing a regular naan, I would suggest the full-fat coconut or cashew yogurt and then a vegan butter.
Okay. Over a soy yogurt.
Someone is standing with me.
No, and I think I'm with Samir. Definitely, there are so many products on the market now that are vegan friendly, and the cashew one is the one that we are using, and it brings it up. Again, Joe, I'm really sorry, but I've never used egg in the naan.
Interesting.
No, you don't use egg in the naan. Actually, our naans are egg-free naans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't think we've and the plant-based yogurts do work for us. Work really well.
Okay.
They do deliver a really nice flavour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well done, everyone.
Listen, you did bring us on here to agree with each other, did you?
I have never had such a contentious episode. It's brilliant. Our numbers will go through the roof. People just tune in for the ding dong. Right. Claire says, and this is something we've touched on before in this podcast, how do I use okra without making it slimy? Anjula, let's start with you.
Okay, so okra, yes, a difficult vegetable to contend with, a bit like mushrooms. For us, never wash it under running water. You clean it with a damp cloth. Secondly, when you cook it on a high heat and add some lemon juice just as you throw it into the pan. And I promise you will be very successful in making okra. But the biggest tip is not to wash the okra under running water.
What about an old toothbrush? Can I use that?
No.
Samah, what about you?
Yeah, I was going to say the excess moisture is what's going to make that slime even more slimy. So getting rid, like I pat it dry completely. So like Anjula was saying, don't like drench it because that moisture is what's going to make that more like viscous and not so cute. And then also when you do cook it, add something acidic. So like lemon juice, even tomatoes I do, because that acidity is going to reduce that slimy factor, which is definitely a little tough sometimes.
Joe, butter,
exactly
yogurt,
the same
egg.
Thing to add on. But I mean, if you want to wash your okra, I mean, wash it before cutting. I mean, don't ever wash the okra after slicing it or after cutting it. And again, one more thing: if you're cutting, make a thin slices instead of the big chunks, so it cooks faster and always on a high flame.
Yep.
Okay, top tips. Thank you. I kind of want to try it. I want to try okra again. Like I've never I've never really had a go
I
at
had
it.
okra fries in my menu. Crispy okra fries. I should thinly slice the okra and deep fry it. You should get the crispy okra fries as a starters. Was fabulous.
Deep frying is always the answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
don't make a batter. It's only dust. You should have spice mix flour, and that is a tip for frying the okra. Or you never make a batter for frying the okra. We make a spice mix flour, a bit of rice flour, a bit of corn flour, and some of chick flour, and chaat masala or chili powder, and some dry ginger powder if you want to add. And just thinly slice okra and mix it or dust it with those flour and deep fry it. Once you're out from the fryer, sprinkle some chili powder, chaat masala, and dry mango powder. It gives you a really tangy, spicy taste.
You redeemed yourself.
No, that does sound really good. I want to try that.
It sounds. I've been writing it down as he was speaking.
Yeah.
I've got some tips. Do you know? And that's the other thing that you can always be learning, Jacob. Everyone thinks that just because you've been brought up to cook Indian food since you were small, that you most people think they know everything, but actually we don't. Just like Joe's just said, some of the things that Joe just talked about okra with, I thought I was just jotting it down quickly, thinking, oh, that's great. Yeah, I'll try that.
Anjula, we are recording this. It will, it'll be very easy to access this information again.
I've been to Joe's restaurant, and I have to tell you, the food is absolutely stunning. It really is, and it is quite a special place. So,
thank you so much.
If you do come to London, you must visit. It really is quite special.
I would love to. I actually went to high school, part of my high school in London, so it's
really
a very special place in my heart.
Wow!
If you come to the restaurants. No, seriously. If you come to a restaurant, I will give you a 7-course Indian vegan tasting menu.
Amazing. You will have my undying love.
There.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's crack on. Penny says, can you recommend a spice blend that I can make a batch of to use, please? Loving the world tour. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Penny. This is the whole essence of Garam Masala, right?
Yeah.
This is your kind of go-to blend of spices. Do you... Samah, let's start with you. Do you have a sort of just a batch thing that you use?
You know what? I think we touched on this before, where it's for me personally, and I'm sure everyone is different, I don't have a batch of a certain thing that I use in everything. But I will say there are a few spices that I pretty much use in everything that, like Anjula was saying, don't really count.
Yeah, they don't even count.
The cumin, the turmeric, the cayenne. Those 3 for me are my must-haves in basically everything that I make. So while I don't make my own spice blend per se, those are 3 that I rely on, and I feel also a really good starter kit per se for people looking to get into Indian food, because it gives you those flavors, but it's not intimidating. It's only these 3 spices that I think are a good intro. And you don't need to make a batch blend. You just kind of buy those 3 spices and use them in varying capacities for a lot of different things.
Awesome. Anjula?
I'm with Samir. We don't really make a batch full of masala or spices, because once they're ground, they lose their flavor. And in fact, here when we're teaching, we teach people using whole spices, and we get them to grind the spices when they're with us. We tend not to make anything for more than 4 or 5 days, because spices do lose their flavors quite quickly. Yeah. So I would always say, well, don't
do a batch thing.
Don't do a batch thing, but like Samir said, a really good idea is just to experiment with start off with your cumin, your turmeric, and your chili flakes or cayenne pepper, and then build on that, and then start to add coriander seeds. And in fact, coriander seeds, cumin, turmeric, and cayenne is quite stunning. So
nice.
Yes.
Joe?
Totally.
Anjula, are you okay?
Yes.
What I do, I always keep some garam masala with my cupboard, because was absolutely right. I mean, once been grounded, it has got a 110% of chances to lose its flavors. But what I do, I ground them and I keep them in airtight containers. It's not. It has to be away from the normal lights or sunlight. I mean, it's in a dark, cool place. I always store it. See, I have a 5 or 6 spices what I make it at home. The main thing is green cardamom, bit of cloves, cumin seeds, and bay leaf, cinnamon, and a bit of fennel seeds. I mean, these are the 5 or 6 spices what you can make, and you can make a fabulous garam masala. But don't just get everything in kilos and kilos. I mean, make a one big batch. No, just one small blender. You can always powder and keep. It's always accelerate my cooking in terms of flavors. And again, she was absolutely right. I mean, I love to use all spices when cooking. When I started cooking, I mean, there's 2 different things. I mean, 2 different times I use my spices. When I'm starting cooking, I use all spices. When I finish cooking, I use garam masala to enhance more flavors. While I'm cooking, I infuse those flavors in the oil. I mean, add oil to the pan, then add all spices into it. What happens with the heat of the oil, the spices infuse its own flavors to the oil, then this all oil give accelerated flavor to the curry what we make. And end of it, I mean, before finishing the curry, I mean, I add a pinch of garam masala on top of it, and I cover and keep without stirring it. What happened is, I mean, we had a garam masala on top and covered it. It still has that steam inside the pot. With that steam, it accelerates its flavor, and it's again enhance the dish. That's what I do with my garam masala.
Excellent.
Jacob, can I just say, just to the other thing where we're saying we were talking about gaining knowledge and the understanding of how to use spices. When we just talked, Joe just talked about bay leaves, which is a phenomenal spice. But do remember that the bay leaves we use are Indian bay leaves from a cinnamon tree. They are not the laurel bay leaf that the Mediterraneans use. They deliver a completely different flavor. So one of the things I would definitely say is to get an understanding of your spices, even if you're just starting with 4 or 5, or usually we would say 7 because that's the masala dabba comes in with 7 containers. But do your research, or go to someone who has been working with those spices, because it's really important to buy the right spice.
Right.
Then honestly, you won't feel intimidated. Like Samir said, you just begin to gain. It's like anything, I'm not going to start, doing it. I'm not going to become an engineer or fly a plane without understanding how to do it. It's just like anything else.
Give it a go. Just have fun.
It's like anything else. Knowledge is power. So you gotta.
Actually, yes, I always. As Anjula, I always tell my team, I might know only 5 things, you might know 10 things. And if we stand together, we both know 15 things together. Exactly. That's how it works.
I know no things. I'm bringing nothing to the party. It's time for us to hit the pause button on our world tour of India and ask our standard free pass question, namely, what do you do with tofu? Yes. What do you do with tofu? This doesn't have to be, you doesn't have to pertain to Indian cuisine particularly. It's literally, if I gave you a pack of tofu, what would you do with it for lunch tomorrow? Let's start with Anjula.
I knew you were going to choose me.
Yeah.
I
could see it on your face.
When we first had to start looking at tofu, and because obviously we're getting more and more vegans, and I
we're breeding, we're multiplying.
I found I'm a vegetarian, more or less a vegan. The tofu, the taste for me, I couldn't work with it, and then I realised that actually you've got to press it first to get rid of most of the moisture, and then for me you have to marinate it. When you marinate, it completely changes. The taste, the texture, and everything, because otherwise it's bland. Just like paneer is. Paneer is quite bland unless you start to work with it. But definitely press it, get rid of all the moisture, and then marinate it. And I tend to marinate 24 hours with tofu, and then you will taste something amazing.
What's your marinade of choice?
We use a Garam Masala, which Joe will tell you is a phenomenal masala. It's ziggy, zesty, tangy, and spicy all in one go.
My favorite spice girls.
Making me hungry, Anjula.
Yeah.
It really is. With tofu, that's a marriage made in heaven. I'm quite overwhelmed actually with how good it tastes, because I wasn't a fan. I have to tell you, I wasn't a fan of tofu, and I'm a fan of all foods.
You people,
tofu,
unbelievable.
Tofu took me a little while to get my head round, but once I did, I'm pretty impressed with it actually.
If that took you a while, God knows how long it's going to take you to get your head around tempeh. Joe, tell us more about this this masala, and tell me what you would do with tofu.
Sure, definitely. How many of you can see my video?
Are you checking? Why? What are you doing?
I'm just sending you. Oh my God! I'm just sending you a picture, Jake. If you can access your.
Yes.
If you can access your Instagram.
Yes.
I'm just sending you a picture for all three.
Oh my God! Oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. Sorry.
What I have got.
Friend.
I think it's in your inbox.
My God, that's filthy. Look at that. Grilled tofu, Karnataka coconut suka masala cashew crumble. Oh, what?
Oh, that sounds amazing.
That sounds delicious.
Oh. Go on then.
Hello.
Walk us through that one. That looks like it takes about 4 days to prepare. And that is beautiful plating.
I normally make tofu masala, crumbled tofu masala.
Oh.
What I do, so I just crumble with the hand. It's the texture is very soft, so I just crumble them with the hand, and again I go with mustard oil and some dry red chilies, some cumin seeds and some green cardamoms, then some chopped onions, ginger and garlic on the go, and some tomatoes finely chopped and keep a chili powder, turmeric powder, dried fenugreek leaves, and you will get a really thick red masala, and you add those crunched or crushed tofu into it and keep on mixing it. If you want, you can add a bunch of a handful of green peas to the same. It's like you can have a perfect tofu mash or tofu masala with the green peas.
Sounds great.
That sounds really good.
Absolutely vegan. I
Sounds
even
good.
made without green peas. Without green peas, I made the same for amuse bouche for my tasting menu. I just set them in a tart, and after that I just baked in the oven on a high heat for 1 minute. So it's form a small crust on top. So it's so amazing to have it in a tart shell. I even served on a golgappa puree.
Oh,
so you can
golgappa
feel
puree
it on
sounds
golgappa.
amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yes, nice.
So
I'm there.
I even served on that too.
It sounds amazing. My bouche is amused.
What I have sent you is the same way Anjula is being told. It's marinated. The tofu has been marinated with oil, chili powder, turmeric powder, and I didn't use achari this time, but only chili powder, turmeric powder, and salt. Nicely marinated, and I grilled them on a griddle plate, both the sides, and in the oven for another 2 minutes. Done. Your tofu steak is done. Those masala again, pretty much the same marination, but add coconut, dry grated coconut into the mixture, and finish off with the lemon juice.
Wow. Sounds epic.
I'm making you hungry for this evening?
Yeah,
Yes,
this is a bit of a nightmare. I
definitely.
always record this podcast when I should be eating, and it's always
It's like
horrendous.
lunchtime for me right now. This
Yeah.
is detrimental to my health.
I'm sorry about this, Summer. It won't be long. They say never work with children or animals, and we appear to have both on this podcast, and everyone's welcome. Anjula's dog has made an appearance.
This is Alfie.
Hello, Alfie.
And we've got another one down there.
Yeah, that's great. It looks like a sentient Swiffer.
Very cute.
It's brilliant. Samah, what do you do with tofu?
So I agree with squeezing that moisture out. You don't want that liquid in there. And also, marinating and seasoning is like key. I actually like to do, I like to bake my tofu. So this
nice.
you could saute it, but I find that when you do saute it, it gets like a little crisp on the outside, but it's still a bit mushy on the inside. And I love that when you bake it, it kind of gets that like nice caramelization on the ends, and it gets more crispy and a little more dry inside, which is what I prefer.
Nice.
I like to marinate it in usually a sesame oil, either a tamari or coconut aminos, which are both gluten-free versions of soy sauce. You could also use soy sauce. I also do chili, and I'll do maybe like a little bit of garlic, a little salt, and then I will just spread that out on a sheet. I'll bake that at like a high temp, like 400 for about 30 minutes. I'll rotate it.
This is like a block. You'll take a whole block and do that.
Oh no, I cube them for sure.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, don't just do the whole block. I'll cut them into like little cubes, and then I'll toast some sesame seeds and I'll put that on top. And I find that that's kind of nice to add to like bowls or salads. Another thing that you could do is use a soft tofu, and you could scramble it like scrambled eggs and put different masala spices in it. So you could do like the turmeric, the cumin, the cayenne, all of that, and maybe some onions as well, and make like scrambled eggs. That's more common, like a tofu scramble, but I like adding the masala in there for like a little extra something.
Little kick. Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for those. All right, we're going to smash through these last 3 questions. Maliki says, how do I go about making a dosa, and what do I need equipment-wise as well? A dosa is like a kind of a pancake thing, right?
That'll be Joe.
almost.
That question has to go to Joe.
Okay, Joe,
Yeah,
how do you make a
it's gotta go to
dosa?
Joe.
You will need
I
2 times industrial
expected-
kitchens.
I expected it actually. See, dosha. When you talk about dosha, it's a hardcore homely feel for me. I born into dosha. I bought up having dosha every day, and I still have dosha every day at home most of the time. It's basically 4:1 consistency. If you have to soak rice and white urad dal when you make your batter. For example, if you're having 200 grams of rice, and you should have 100 grams of white urad dal, soak overnight and make into a fine batter. You can always have a tablespoon of fenugreek seeds that give you a really good color when you make your crepe as a dosha. So once the batter is ready, you have to ferment it again overnight. So basically, you're making a dosha with a fermented dosha batter.
Right.
So it's a 24 hours process. We have to soak it for 12 hours, and you have to ferment the batter for 12 hours. So you have to plan in such a way dosha. So it's a day before planning.
So
And,
when you say
coconut
rice,
chutney
is it like ground rice or?
Normally it's normal rice, basmati rice. What I do, I don't want to spend £5 for my kilo basmati rice. What I do, go to Tesco and Sainsbury, get those 45p rice from the Tesco brand and Sainsbury brand. I use that.
Right.
It comes perfectly fine.
Uh-huh.
See, basically we are grounding it. I don't want to show a long grain rice on a dosha. It's basically we are all grinding it and making a paste, and that is fabulous, really fabulous. And once it's been fermented, we can make a dosha. I mean, you can season with salt after fermenting. There are lots of people do salt. They do add salt after fermenting. Sometimes they add salt and keep for fermenting. So once the fermented batter is ready, you can just pour how you're making your crepe on a heated grill pan and on a pancake shape. If you're making a crispy dosha, you don't flip it. I mean, it's only cooked one side. The other side, we just scrape the excess batter and keep it ready. And if you want a soft dosha, you can flip it. Once you flip, you won't get crispy dosha.
Ah, interesting.
And
could
again,
you conceivably do it in a frying pan?
Yes, normally yes. So
Anjula's like, no, absolutely not.
No. On a frying pan, yes. At home we do make it with a frying pan. Sometimes non-stick. Otherwise, if you don't have a non-stick, you have to season the pan. What I do, put some oil and add some chunky cuts of onions and salt, and toast it nicely. The pan will season and can have a really good dosha, and it comes out nicely.
Nice.
And again, Anjula Devi, we always have a dosha with a coconut chutney.
Yeah,
again.
I can see Anjula nodding away. She's completely with you every step of this.
But recently,
Yeah.
But
Go on, Joe.
let me see this. Recently, I made a new chutney at my home. It's a tomato and cashew nut chutney.
Oh, wow.
Ooh,
Do you want me to
nice.
explain the recipe?
Sure, I tell you what, could we put it on our website?
I can. I'll let you know. I mean, I
That
can
would be
give
amazing.
you a really good picture of dosha and tomato cashew nut chutney.
That would be
And then you
amazing.
can
That
put
would that would be a great thing. People should go and check out veganlifemag.com. Anjula was nodding all the way through that. She was 100% behind you. Anjula exclusively makes her dosa in frying pans and always with coconut. Is that right?
So here's the thing: dosa, and Joe will tell you this, notoriously difficult to make. Okay.
Right.
Takes lots and lots of practice, because if you don't get that batter consistency right and you don't ferment overnight, you will never successfully make a great dosa.
Okay.
And in fact, the dosa is in the 100 recipe. It's 100 things you must eat before you die, and I think it's number 24. The dosa is
bad.
in that list. So that is an amazing. That's how good a dosa can taste. So
Do you know what? Do you know what's
invest
at
the
number
time.
one on that list?
It's not a samosa, is it?
Panda. Shocking, really. Panda. It's just awful.
Yeah.
Samah,
But
do you have
it's-
anything to add on dosas?
I have literally nothing to add to that. I feel like I
Okay.
shouldn't even get in between them two. But
You
thank
don't,
you for
God, no,
asking
God,
me.
we need you. If you're not, without you, it's just going to be a bloodied fight. It'll be horrendous.
No, yeah, I think this has been
I'm
really
kidding.
great, because everybody has a different opinion, and that's the thing
Yeah, I
about
love it.
food. There are no rules.
Yeah.
Everyone cooks differently, and that's the beauty of when
Yeah.
we go into the kitchens at Manchester United, and all the chefs are like, "Oh, Anjula, what are you cooking today? What should we have for lunch?" And I'm like saying to them, "Oh, how did you do that? And what do you do there? And how do I keep this to stop this from happening?" That is the beauty. The creativity in when you're cooking is it's endless, absolutely endless.
It's also just such a deeply ingrained, passionate feeling,
Yeah.
because
and
it
the
is
stories that we could tell you growing up, and the food we ate, and my father picked the potatoes from the ground, took them to the outdoor tap, washed them, and made them in this makeshift tandoor that coals used to be stored in. It brings people together, and that's the beauty about
Yeah.
food.
But only when they-
regardless of
only when they don't
regardless of
undercook the potatoes.
and use coconut oil.
This is nothing more divided. Okay, let's crack on. We can do this. We're so nearly
Jake,
there.
before going for anything, just check out your Instagram. I send you another message.
Okay. Wow,
For
is that
everyone.
human? Oh, hang on. Sorry. Again, I looked at the wrong one. It's so open. I'm sorry. No. Oh, yeah, that's a beautiful looking dosa. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, I have sent to everyone, even to Anjula and.
I think it's a dosa.
Oh,
It's a
yeah,
dosa,
I'm
guys.
getting
Relax.
it,
It's a
but-
dosa. It's this
Yeah.
long,
Thank you.
cylindrical shosha dosa. Right.
Small story behind this. I made surprise my wife making this after when she was coming from a night shift.
Yeah, that's a lovely thing to do. Surprise your wife with
Nice.
Yeah.
an impromptu dosa. Okay. Kunali, I hope I've pronounced your name right, said, I heard once that when you make a curry, you should char the onions. Is that right? I'm going to let Joe answer this one first, just to watch Anjula's reaction.
Okay, basically it's not that you are charred the onions. Basically it has to be caramelizing the onions. I mean, the onion has so much of water content, the onion has so much of sweet content. I mean, and the pungent is quite on a heavy side if you have it raw. There are people who have onion as a salad with red onions, but while you're cooking it, I mean, you should have that sticky what to call like a good gravy. I mean, if your onion didn't cook well, I mean, if your onion didn't caramelize well or didn't translucent well, you won't get that a gravy consistency for your curry. I mean, you feel like the onion stands separate and your meat or your paneer or your vegetables stand separate, which you don't want to do that. So basically it has to caramelize in such a way, it has to cook in such a way, it's not charred basically. Again, if you're making any such authentic dry red brown curry, you have to get it dark brown in color until you have to saute until that you reach that color. So you will get your gravy. I mean, that's how you manage your gravy. And again, you have something called korma. which is not charred. I mean, you are just boiling the onions with some cashew nuts, green chilies, fennel seeds, green cardamoms, and we simply boil with the water. White onion I was talking about. Then you make a paste out of it, and you will get a thick, creamy white onion sauce in your hand.
I want that thick, creamy sauce in my hand. Anjula, you don't need to char onions. There was unanimity there.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's absolutely right. For us, it's we cook onions depending on what we're cooking. So, for example, when you're cooking, not that we should, but when we're cooking like a lentil, the onions need to be really well caramelized and quite pungent in flavor, because the lentils need that flavor to, infuse into. All the lentils need a good base, so they have to be well caramelized. But when you're cooking something like cauliflower and potatoes, we tend to fry them really, really quickly, because we don't want to lose the flavor of those potatoes or the cauliflower or the carrot. We still want a carrot to taste like a carrot, or cauliflower to taste really like a cauliflower. But so the onion, it really depends on what you're cooking.
Okay.
You can quickly stir fry some onions depending on what it is, but if you're making lentils, then caramelize them really, really well, cook them for a long period. In fact, I think Indian cooking, we cook our onions far longer than any other cuisine, and that is because they, like Joe said, they're quite high in sugar. Certainly brown onions are high in sugar, and they will caramelize really, really well and will deliver quite a sensational flavor when they've been cooked down for a long period. But we don't necessarily cook them down for a long period. It depends on what we're actually cooking.
This is amazingly expansive answers to a seemingly simple question. No, it's brilliant. It's really brilliant. Samah, anything to add there?
I mean, I think that's a really great point, that it depends on what you're cooking. So for a lot of things, when you are making something that has maybe more of a gravy to it, you almost want the onions to be so cooked down that they disappear in the dish that you're eating. And that's going to give it, like Anjula was saying, that like really dark, like caramelized flavor. Like those aromatics are so important in any dish. But if it's a vegetable, for example, like say I want to make like a cauliflower or potato dish with some onions, I kind of want to taste the onions. I want them to have a little bit more visibility in the dish, because it just works better that way, in my opinion. Obviously, everyone is different. But I would agree with all of that, and say that it depends on the dish, but cooking it down usually is what's going to impart that really deep caramelization to what you're eating.
Fantastic. Okay. Our final question. I never thought we'd get here, but we did.
Wow.
I didn't think we'd all make it through alive, that's for sure. But Grace says, what can I replace ghee with to make it vegan? I mean, we sort of slightly touched on this. Please, no one say, okay. Don't say it! He said it! He went straight there. Why would you do that? Oh, a bonfire. Let me get my petrol can. Samah, what about you? What do you use? You said olive oil.
Yes, I just felt triggered by this question because of coconut oil
history.
Gate.
Yeah, of course.
I would say that, like I said earlier, olive oil and a really good single origin extra virgin olive oil is what I would use in the plate for savory cooking, in the place of a ghee. And if you want something that is more like buttery, you could use a vegan butter. I personally don't. I prefer an olive oil or even a grapeseed oil sometimes. But when it comes to baking, that's where I use coconut oil.
Okay.
Actually, can I just clarify? There's nothing wrong with
Clarify what? Your butter?
Nothing wrong with coconut oil. And in fact,
some of my best friends. Go on.
South Indian food, a lot of it is based around coconut oil, and it works really, really well with those dishes. Just not in Saag Aloo. And certainly you can make your own ghee, but like Samir said, the artificial, butter that's made for vegans, I don't think is great. There still needs to be a lot more work done on that. But certainly taking some neutral oils and maybe just using rapeseed oil, it just works really well. Sometimes you shouldn't be interfering. If ghee doesn't work for you, then don't use it. Go and get something that will work really well. And rapeseed oil and even sunflower oil, they all do great jobs.
Okay.
So you don't have to turn it. I mean, we make great Indian food, and some of it just happens to be vegan. We're not trying to make it vegan. We grew up eating vegan food. So when people talk to us and say, "Oh, I want a recipe for vegan food," and they're panicking, we think, "Well, why are you panicking? We grew up eating vegan food.
Yeah.
We had dal 2 or 3 times a week. We had vegetables that were growing in our garden. So as a child, this vegan thing that's suddenly exploded now, we did that forever. We were saving the planet since we were 2 years old, with eating good food that just happened to be vegan.
Yeah. Okay. We're pretty much there. I do have one final question, which is just as sort of ambassadors for Indian cooking, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you wish we had? Is there anything that, we didn't explore that you think we should have done? Joe, is there anything that you're itching to tell us about?
If I ever get a chance, I always stand for my cuisine where I belongs to. What I spend my whole childhood, where I spend my whole childhood, what I have eaten in my whole childhood, where my mom's recipes were lying on. So that is where I stand for. That is what I'm doing at the moment. I'm trying to modernize my local cuisine to a fine dining standard. Without compromising its flavors or taste, only just making them look better on a fine dining standards. That's what I'm doing at the moment. I love to be an ambassador for my cuisine, where in this country, to be very honest. As Anjula was saying, see, if you consider the Kerala cuisine, it's pretty much 95% of the dishes were completely vegan. We might add some of yogurt or ghee somewhere in the preparation of some dishes. Otherwise, pretty much everything is vegan. If you talk about Kerala Sadhya, that is one of the traditional meal what Kerala has. Only 2 or 3 dishes has got yogurt and ghee in it. Otherwise, the whole Sadhya is considered a completely vegan dish. I adapted a couple of dishes from Kerala cuisine to enhance my vegan menu. That is what something called a pumpkin steak, what was in my menu before. It was in my hometown, it's called pumpkin erisheri. It's the same, pretty much the same thing. I adapted and I given a new look for the same thing, and I adapted into a vegan pumpkin steak to my menu. Pumpkin steak. I always stand for my cuisine.
Samah, what about you?
I really resonate with the idea that things are plant-based but not on purpose. I talk about this in my book, that a lot of the food that I make is accidentally plant-based. It's not like I set out to make it vegan or gluten-free or whatever it is. But by nature of the ingredients that you use, it actually just is that way. Indians have been eating vegan food and all of these spices that are now so trendy and so commodified now. And, you look at like the golden milks of the world and you're like, okay, that is definitely healthy, dude. That like has been around forever. So it's really cool to almost, take back the narrative a little bit. I definitely feel like sometimes I've fallen prey to watering down my ethnicity or my recipes to please a Western audience. And I feel like really happy that I can kind of, take that back a bit. And it inspires me to talk to people like you both, Anjula and Joe, who are really like proud of that, and I am as well. And I think it's a really cool thing to even be considered like an ambassador of the cuisine, and at least trying to get it out to more people for sure.
Fabulous. And Julia.
Yeah, and I agree with them both. We cook traditional Punjabi food, and if you came to London, there are very few Punjabi restaurants now. The Indian food is beginning to be diluted down and down. And like Samir said, it's so important to hold on to those traditions and those values and the stories behind the cuisine, because they are so incredibly touching. We make a black dal, And the story goes is that the dal used to, in India, it used to be cooked down for at least 6-8 hours. And it's called Madi dal, ma meaning mum. And it was your mother cooking those lentils down for a long period, and then when you arrived home you had this comforting bowl of lentils with fresh roti and chapatis and what have you, and that is what we should be kind of teaching our children, that whole thing about the wholeness of what food means to people and how you can bring people together purely on those stories and those wonderful dishes. I make black lentils probably twice a week at home, and nobody ever gets fed up with it because of the story behind it. It's just so special, So I think that if we can get as many people sharing their stories about food and and how they grew up eating all these wonderful dishes, and how mum cooked something with just 2 ingredients, like my father used to be able to cook I'd say to Dad, there's nothing to eat we've got nothing in the cupboards, and within 15 minutes he's conjured up something absolutely mind-blowing, and I think that's really important because cooking is a life skill, and I think everybody should have it.
Beautiful. A lovely note to end on. Just briefly tell us where people can find you and your work. Anjula, let's start with you.
Instagram at Anjula Devi. I have a website, anjuladevi.com. That's about it. Or if you ever come to Manchester United, you might find me in one of their 27 kitchens.
27? That's insane. Samah, you're like all over the television and everything, everywhere.
Oh.
Tell us.
Well, that's generous, but thank you. You can find me at Dada Eats on Instagram. That's DADA Eats. My first cookbook just came out a month ago. It's called Dada Eats Love to Cook It. And
looks amazing.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to visit all of you, by the way. I'm going to be in one of those 27 kitchens just watching you and eating your food.
You should come. Definitely come.
I would love to. And and on the Today Show, I have a show with them called #Cooking, and that's streaming on Peacock TV and on today's streaming platform.
Fantastic.
So you can find me on Instagram, Chef Jomon, Jomon. There is no hashtags or full stops in between. You can find me there. I have my own website, chefjomon.com. In pretty much every platform you can find me as Chef Jomon, other than Tinder. I haven't downloaded it yet.
I would so love it if you and Anjula ended up being a match. That would be so special.
No.
The Vegan Life Podcast World Tour rumbles on. Next time, we're going to be looking at Thai cuisine. After that, we're doing a podcast on Caribbean cuisine. If you've got any questions about Caribbean food, why don't you email? It's podcast@veganlifemag.com. Don't forget, you can buy the magazine Vegan Life at veganlifemag.com or in shops or there's an app for that, like there's for everything else in the world. It would be great if you could spread the word about this podcast. We sort of live or die by your subscribing and sharing. We don't market it other than, endlessly in our own magazine. So if you could tell someone you think might like it about it, that would be really brilliant. And we're on Instagram. It's Vegan Life Mag _podcast. Is that right? I think it's Vegan Life _podcast. I can't remember. It's Vegan Life _podcast. That's how engaged I am with social media. But we're going to put more exclusive bits and pieces on there. That's it. Thank you all so much. And from me, Jake Yap. Bye-bye.
This has been a Swanburst Media production.